A grand opening is set this evening for the Winter Youth Games in Gangwon province. We'll take you live to the scene where excitement is building among the hundreds of young athletes who've gathered there from around the world. North Korea says it has conducted a test of an underwater nuclear weapon system to protest the joint military drills by South Korea, the US, and Japan earlier this week. Iran-backed Houthis have reportedly launched 2 missiles at an American-owned tanker in the Gulf of Aden. U.S. President Joe Biden says their counteroffensive against the Houthis will continue. It's January 19, 2024. This is Newscenter.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon. South Korea's eastern Gangwon province is where we begin our coverage this evening. The very first Youth Winter Olympics to be held in Asia kick off tonight there. Without further ado, let's connect with our culture correspondent Song Yujin joining us live from the city of Gangneung. Yujin, you're there where the opening ceremony will take place at any moment. How are things over there?
Well, good evening, Chongmin. Although it's raining, as you can see, and it's a degree above zero, because of the excitement of the Youth Olympic Games, it's heating things up here. So we're only about an hour and a half away until the opening ceremony of the 2024 Gangwon Youth Olympic Games kicks off here at the Gangneung Oval, which you see behind me. The organizers say that they're expecting around 9,000 spectators to be inside the venue itself. But at the same time, the opening ceremony will be broadcast simultaneously at the Pyeongchang Dome in the nearby Pyeongchang County. And as you know, South Korea is hosting its second Winter Olympics 6 years after the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. So the excitement here is real. So let's first listen to how much people here are excited about Gangwon 2024.
I'm a big sports fan, but back in 2018, I missed the chance to participate because I was a high school senior. That's why I signed up this time.
The opening ceremony seems to be a bit smaller than 2018, but I'm excited to see the athletes, the Olympic stars of the future.
My sister is going to be an athlete participating, so we're very excited. Our whole family's here to support her, and lots of friends and family back home will be watching online. Go, Maya! You're going to do great. Win or lose, we're going to have a lot of fun, and don't forget to listen for us cheering.
So as you can see, Chongmin, everyone here is ready to enjoy the games.
Absolutely. I can really feel the buzz even from here. But Yujin, for those who are not familiar with the Youth Olympics, tell us a bit more about Gangwon 2024.
Right, so first of all, the Youth Olympic Games is specifically for athletes aged between 15 and 18 years old. This is the 4th edition of the Winter Youth Olympic Games. This time, 1,803 athletes from 79 National Olympic committees will be taking part, and that is a record for the Winter Youth Olympic Games. Now, these athletes will be competing in 15 disciplines across 7 sports, and most of the venues will be the venues that were used during the 2018 Pyeongchang Games. So this Gangneung Oval, for example, will once again host the speed skating events. And I also want to mention that the Youth Olympic Games offers us as spectators a chance to take a look at and meet the future Olympic stars of the future. And that's because most of the athletes I've met here said that their ultimate dream is to perform and compete at the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics. So let's listen to what the head of the International Olympic Committee had to say on this.
The expectations are that the athletes are using these Winter Youth Olympic Games as a stepping stone then for the Olympic Games. What we have seen very successfully in the last Winter Youth Olympic Games and Olympic Games.
And we've actually witnessed a lot of sports stars becoming youth Olympic medalists and then successfully transitioning to Olympic medalists. For example, snowboarders Chloe Kim and Eileen Gu. So I can say that the stage is set.
I do wonder who will be the breakout stars too. Speaking of athletes, what can we expect from Team Korea?
Well, first of all, South Korea will be sending 102 athletes, which is the most among all National Olympic committees. And we're expecting strong performances, especially in short track speed skating, figure skating, half-pipe snowboarding, as well as bobsleigh. So starting from short track speed skating, South Korea won the most number of gold medals in all the previous 3 Winter Youth Olympic Games. As for figure skating, we're expecting Shin Ji-ah and Kim Young-geum to both medal at the women's singles and men's singles event, which will be the first time in Korea's Olympic history. And as for half-pipe snowboarding, keep an eye on Itaewon and Gangwon, both considered strong contenders for the gold medal. And last but not least, in bobsleigh, So Jae-hwan is on a mission to make history as the first Asian bobsledder to win a Youth Olympic gold medal.
Lots to look forward to then. Eugene, now I hear there are some events exclusive to the Youth Olympics. What are some of them?
Right. So the Youth Olympics is not just about medals, what kind of color of the medal that you're winning. It's also about educating athletes regarding safe sports, injury prevention, as well as mental health. So the games will provide workout sessions as well as workshops and group training sessions for the athletes. And there's also something for us, you guys who are watching, because there'll be the so-called Let's Play Winter Festival, which will offer spectators and visitors a chance to experience winter sports, for example, mini curling, mini biathlon, as well as attending a training session from Olympians as well.
Right, sounds like a lot of fun. And with the opening ceremony set to start soon, what can we expect tonight?
Right, so the 90-minute opening ceremony will follow the story of a girl named Uri who is from Gangwon province, but I think that the biggest spectacle will be the digital cauldron. So for the first time in any Olympic history, Gangwon 2024 will be introducing a digital cauldron using cloud computing and anamorphic technology. And because the ceremony hasn't started yet, we're not sure how the cauldron will be lit, but we know that spectators and visitors will be able to see the digital cauldron right next to the Gangneung Ice Hockey Center outside until the games end on February 1st. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more updates in our 9 o'clock newscast once the ceremony starts. Back to you, Jang-min.
Right. Enjoy yourself out there, Eugene. That was our Song Yujin live from the Gangneung Oval. Also in Gangneung, President Yoon Suk-yeol promised to empower young people and local economies as he sat down for coffee with university students in the East Coast city. The president paid a visit to the northern province of Gangwon-do on Friday, where he and Education Minister Lee Joo-ho met with 15 students, listening to what they had to say on things such as student life, career prospects, finances, and housing. President Yoon expressed his support for young people in pursuing their dreams. He also renewed his New Year's pledge to make sure government policies heed and quickly reflect issues encountered in daily life. Lee, who doubles as Deputy Prime Minister, has been working on pilot projects to transfer universities across the country to become hubs of innovation and development amid the nation's record low birth rate and regional gaps in areas outside the capital. Moving on, North Korea says it has conducted another test of its underwater nuclear weapons system as it continues to blame the U.S. and its allies. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Bae Yoon-ji reports.
North Korea claims that it has tested an underwater weapons system in protest against this week's combined naval drills between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan, saying they're seriously threatening the security of the North. That's according to a statement from the North's Defense Ministry on Friday, which said it conducted an important test of its Hail 523 system in its eastern waters. But it did not unveil specific details, such as when it was conducted or the test results. Hail, which means tsunami, is the North's underwater nuclear drone system that's designed to generate what it calls a radioactive tsunami to carry out strikes on enemy vessels and ports. The North claims to have tested the system twice last year, the Hail 1 in March and then the Hail 2 in April. To better respond to growing threats from the North, South Korea, the U.S., and Japan jointly conducted naval exercises this week involving the U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Carl Vinson, for 3 days starting Monday in waters south of Jeju Island. This took place a day after North Korea test-fired what it claimed was a solid-fuel intermediate-range ballistic missile carrying a hypersonic warhead. The South Korean military said the drills were aimed at bolstering the three countries' response capabilities against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Tensions on the Korean peninsula have been rising in recent weeks, with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un saying he has no intention of avoiding war, threatening to annihilate the South if it attempts to use force against the regime. 배은지, Arirang News.
Having met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow this week, North Korea's Choi Sun-hee is now back home. Newly spotted this time was the North Korean contingent carrying a document insinuating space cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil explains.
North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported that a delegation led by Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee had returned to Pyongyang on Friday after an official visit to Russia. Choi arrived in Moscow on January 14th and met with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak, and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov before leaving on Thursday. During Choi's meeting with President Putin on Tuesday, her aide was seen holding a document that said observation list in space technology fields in Korean. Pundits say the document hints at a possible discussion taking place on technology cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow on spy satellite or missiles. Choi met with Russian Deputy Prime Minister Novak on Wednesday, and KCNA reported the two discussed wide-ranging cooperation in trade and their economies, among others. While meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, it's likely the two discussed details of President Putin's possible visit to Pyongyang.
There were official announcements from both countries regarding Putin's visit, so we think it's highly likely this will happen. We will keep a close eye on further developments, including the timing of Putin's visit to North Korea.
The South Korean Unification Ministry added that the international community was closely monitoring North Korea-Russia relations, and the cooperation between the two must abide by UN Security Council resolutions and should be done in a way that promotes peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In New York, members of the UN Security Council met behind closed doors on Thursday to address recent security concerns triggered by North Korea. Also present was South Korea as it began its term as a non-permanent member. Choi Soo-hyung tells us more about what was discussed.
The United Nations Security Council met in New York on Thursday local time to discuss North Korean threats in the new year. This comes as South Korea, a non-permanent member of the Council, has requested international cooperation against the North security threats. Other countries such as the US and Japan also requested the meeting, which focused on North Korea and non-proliferation. In the meeting, the members discussed the regime's recent threats to Seoul and the international community, as well as the North Korea's launch on Sunday of an intermediate-range ballistic missile. South Korea emphasized that the North nuclear policy has changed in the last 2 or 3 years, so the Security Council should react not only by focusing on ballistic missiles launched by North Korea, but rather all types of security threats that harm international peace and safety. After the meeting, South Korea's UN ambassador Hwang Jung-guk said in-depth discussions took place. South Korea and the US urged the Security Council to break its silence, mentioning that Kim Jong-un, the leader of the regime, had declared a hostile relationship between Seoul and Pyongyang. However, experts say it may be challenging to reach an agreement on North Korean matters due to the current Security Council divisions. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
The health authorities here say the number of patients with respiratory diseases and other viruses has been surging because more people take their masks off these days. Now they are putting proactive emergency measures in place earlier than originally planned. Lee Soo-jin reports.
The relief that people felt after being able to take their masks off following the decline in COVID-19 infections will seemingly be short-lived as other viruses have begun to spread nationwide. Data released by the National Health Insurance Service on Friday showed that the number of influenza patients saw a whopping 91.2-fold rise in 2022 compared to the previous year. Cases of influenza have been steadily decreasing since 2018, but saw a sharp rise in 2022. Teenagers were the most commonly affected, making up nearly 40% of patients, as group activities in schools and academies more easily expose them to viruses, leading to a more rapid spread of infectious diseases. This upward trend is continuing as patients with acute respiratory infections have also risen to 461 in the second week of January this year from 368 in the 51st week of last year. But it's not just respiratory illnesses that are plaguing the nation. During the second week of January, 360 people were infected with norovirus, a highly contagious stomach bug that causes vomiting and diarrhea, according to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency. That's the highest weekly infection count in 5 years. Even more concerning is that children and infants between the ages of 0 and 6 made up nearly half of the individuals infected. And considering how norovirus infections are typically most prevalent between the third week of January and the fourth week of February, the patient count is unlikely to go down anytime soon. To combat this upward trend of both influenza and norovirus cases, the health authorities have decided to take preemptive measures. The KDC announced that it will implement emergency quarantine measures starting Friday instead of during the Lunar New Year holiday from February 9th to the 12th as originally scheduled. The agency and health institutions nationwide will ensure assistance lines and reporting service systems are ready before the holiday alongside 24-hour emergency helplines. Local healthcare institutions, pharmacies, childcare facilities, and kindergartens will also receive guidelines on how to prevent and report the spread of viruses. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The National Assembly on Friday sent a special bill calling for an independent investigation into the deadly Itaewon crowd crush in 2022 to the government. The bill was passed during a plenary session of the opposition-controlled assembly on January 9th. Attention is now focused on whether President Yoon will exercise his veto power once again. The ruling PPP recommended earlier that the president should veto the bill and has called for negotiations to develop a new proposal that can ensure a fair investigation. Turning to the conflicts in the Middle East, Iran-backed Houthis have launched 2 missiles at a U.S.-owned tanker in the Gulf of Aden. President Biden says their counteroffensive against the Houthis will continue. Chung Eun-jo with the details.
The U.S. launched new strikes against Iranian-backed Houthi rebel military sites in Yemen on Thursday as growing tensions in the region's sea lanes disrupted global trade and raised fears of supply bottlenecks that could reignite inflation. The U.S. Central Command said in a statement posted to X, formerly known as Twitter, that the latest strikes targeted 2 Houthi anti-ship missiles that were aimed into the southern Red Sea and prepared to launch and deemed an imminent threat to shipping and U.S. Navy vessels in the region. The Pentagon said they were conducted by Navy FA-18 fighter aircraft. President Joe Biden acknowledged that the American and British bombardment had yet to stop the militants' attacks on vessels in the Red Sea that have disrupted global shipping. He said, however, that the U.S. military response would continue during an exchange with reporters before departing the White House.
Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
Hours after, a Houthi official said in a pre-recorded statement that its forces had carried out another missile attack against the Marshall Islands-flagged U.S.-owned cargo ship Chem Ranger. The official said the attack took place in the Gulf of Aden, waters just south of Yemen. The U.S. Central Command said in a statement late Thursday that the ship was not affected by the attack. Attacks by the Iran-allied Houthi militia on ships in and around the Red Sea since November have slowed trade between Asia and Europe and alarmed major powers in an escalation of the war between Israel and Palestinian Hamas militants in Gaza. The Houthis say they are acting in solidarity with Palestinians and have threatened to target U.S. ships in response to American and British strikes on the group's positions. Chung Eun-jo, Arirang News.
With the Israel-Hamas war now over 100 days, people in Gaza are struggling to get basic necessities that are so scarce, waiting in lines for hours just to get bread and water. Our Yoon has their story.
More than 100 days into the Israel-Hamas war,
People in Gaza are fighting another war of their own.
Today, the war is psychological, a war of fear, a war on food, war on clean water. There's no water and high prices, war of traders and war of high prices.
According to the Gaza Health Ministry, most of the region's 2.3 million people have been displaced from their homes. Those who have been displaced in the southern part of the Gaza Strip spend hours of their day waiting in lines for items essential for the survival of their families. Our life became all about queues. My children, husband, and I all wake up really early and we split. One goes to get water, one to get bread, one goes to fetch wood. This became our life. Approximately 80% of the total population in the Gaza Strip is now seeking refuge in the southern cities of Rafah and Khan Yunis, making the area even more crowded than before. The Palestine Red Crescent Society said almost 200 humanitarian aid trucks arrived in Gaza through the Karem Salem crossing and the Rafah crossing, bringing in food, water, and medicine, alongside a few more commercial vehicles. However, the aid coming in is not enough for the people in Rafah, and the prices of necessities brought in by traders' commerce trucks are also spiking.
A can of meat, which used to cost 3 shekels, now costs 15 shekels. Why? Because there is none. Life is expensive.
Al Jazeera reported that the Gaza Strip experienced a nearly complete telecommunications blackout for the 7th consecutive day on Friday. It added that conditions in Khan Yunis' Nasser hospital were unbearable, according to a doctor working there, as it was dealing with intense bombardments that have caused thousands to flee. Since Hamas's October 7 attack on Israel that led to over 1,000 deaths, the death toll in Gaza from the Israel-Hamas war now stands at over 24,000. Yoon, Arirang News.
A private space rocket blasted off to the International Space Station from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, Florida on Thursday local time, with 4 European crew members on board, including Turkey's first astronaut. The Crew Dragon spacecraft carried on SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket was launched as part of a 3rd commercial space mission by the U.S.-based Axiom Space in the past 2 years. 9 minutes after the launch, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 placed the crew's capsule in its preliminary orbit. The space capsule is set to dock with the orbiting outposts on Saturday. The crew members will conduct experiments for about 2 weeks. Tomorrow is Taehan, which means the biggest cold of winter. However, even without freezing temperatures, there will be snow or rain over the country this weekend, including in the Seoul metropolitan area. From tonight, rain or snow will begin again on the east coast area of Gyeongsangbuk-do province. As for the amount, with a heavy snow warning having been issued, up to 40 centimeters is forecast in the mountainous areas, and up to 15 on the east coast areas of Gangwon-do province. Jeju Island will receive up to 100 millimeters of heavy rain. Snow and rain on the east coast and Jeju Island will continue until the day after tomorrow. Most areas will see above freezing temperatures tomorrow morning. However, with gusty wind, the wind chill will be lowered by 2 to 4 degrees. Daytime temperatures will be similar to or slightly lower than today's. Seoul 7, Busan 10 degrees Celsius. Since the Winter Youth Olympic Games will be held in Gangwon-do province for 14 days from today, let's take a look at the weather there. Morning temperatures will not plunge to below freezing. Also, there's no need to worry about the cold during the daytime. But rain and snow are in the forecast throughout the day. Please be careful out on the roads. A cold wave of around -10 degrees Celsius will make a return next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.